Just under 2 years ago, I released a two-parter on the themes and lessons from 2022's psychological thriller film Speak No Evil. I watched it on Shudder a few months after release, and I was hooked. It was shocking, alarming, tense, and infuriating in all the best ways. It left such a profound effect on me that I had to monologue on it for 20 minutes straight on YouTube. What made Speak No Evil stand out from other horrors that tried to make some sort of point about something true to life is that it dared to go further than most, and was so intentionally uncomfortable and somehow realistic while still hitting its mark as a satire. If you want me to go into more detail on this, check out my original two-parter on that film. So, when I heard a remake of Speak No Evil was going to be released, a mere 2 years after the original, I was furious. I mean, half the original is spoken in English because that is the two families' mutual language when they don't speak Dutch or Danish. Why would you need to remake this film? However, after hearing it was getting initially good reviews, and because I like James McAvoy and Mackenzie Davis, I convinced myself to give it a go. How could I critique a film I hadn't even seen? That would be breaking my #1 rule of film criticism. Freaking watch the film before badmouthing it. Before I went, I noticed it was written and directed by James Watkins. Almost 10 years ago, I watched a little horror film called Eden Lake. This film shook me to the core and I will never watch it again. Even thinking about it unnerves me. It was an incredibly uncomfortable social commentary on British hostile youth culture and communities. It was fantastic. So that's a step in the right direction for this remake. The plot basically follows the same beats as the original. One family meets another on holiday and are invited to stay with the family on a short break not long after. They visit and slowly but surely things start to get uncomfortable. Boundaries are crossed, couples are bickering, and a little bunny toy named Hoppy will annoy you. A lot. The films naturally are pretty similar, but I found the families to be different enough from their European original counterparts to allow some reasoning for this adaptation. And by the third act, the 2024 film actually makes enough changes to kind of be its own thing. I respect that choice. However, whether that then results in a film as strong as the original is another question. This video will go into spoilers for both films. So if you want to see either the original Speak No Evil or the 2024 version, turn back here. I can't really explain the differences between the films without going into spoilers, sorry. Okay, everyone ready to hear more? Let's go then. The 2024 film makes changes to the original script and overall story. It adds about 30 extra minutes of runtime to explore more of the characters than the original, such as giving the kids the bulk of the mystery-solving storyline and some backstories for Paddy and Kira. There's even a text-cheating subplot for the American parents and their marriage. Some moments from the original are changed ever so slightly for the new setting. I actually enjoyed how they changed up and highlighted the couple's cultural differences, because now we're watching an American couple and a British couple instead of a Danish and Dutch couple respectively. There were small differences, such as what each couple would actually argue against and when. In fact, the American couple spoke up more than the Danish couple would, but in turn, the British couple had to act slightly more pushy and manipulative to sway the Americans. And McAvoy's charming but rough British attitude really worked for this, and felt familiar to certain attitudes and humour in England. I can't speak as much for the American side because, as you may have guessed from my accent, I don't have as much experience with that side of the pond. But I do think it makes sense for them to speak up more than the Danish couple had. Their characters were also fleshed out so well that I understood the American family's dynamic and how their move to the UK and deteriorating marriage had isolated them so much that there was a bit of desperation for excitement and friendship. So that was good setup. And in this version, Louise is a bit more outspoken more often, and it's her husband Ben who continues to push them to stay longer because he has the bigger feelings of isolation and a lack of direction. This furthers the existing strain in their marriage. They are already on the verge of a breakup due to Louise's recent infidelity and Ben's continued unemployment. The children are aged up a bit more, so it makes sense why they take a more active role in the plot. It gives Ant more of a character arc too, because you can presume he has learned from his parents' mistakes. This also gives him more agency in the new film's finale, and I think this change in character works in building up naturally to the new ending created for the 2024 film. Before we discuss the new ending, let's recap the originals. In the original, after continually forgiving the Dutch couple for their faux pas and constant boundary bashing, the Danish family are victim to horrific consequences. A final and awkward middle-of-the-night escape attempt ends with their car breaking down, the Dutch couple rescuing them, and the masks come off. Their daughter's tongue is viciously cut out of her mouth by Karen and Patrick, and taken from them to repeat this holiday friendship charade. Bjorn and Louise are stoned to death for their sins of passivity. It's a cold, bleak ending that stays with you, not least because you expect for them to finally snap out of their passivity and snap back at their tormentors. But they don't, and instead cry pathetically as they sign their lives and daughter away. Their own passivity and need to avoid confrontation results in the destruction of their family and their lives. In the 2024 adaptation, Ant shows Agnes the proof that Bjorn found in the original. Agnes warns her parents and they plot to leave as calmly as possible. After a couple of somewhat tense scenes of Paddy and Kira delaying their departure, Paddy openly tries to drown Ant, causing the parents to turn back to save the child, and getting captured in the process. Now, this is already very different from the original, wherein Abel had been drowned secretly and off-screen. The original's entire third act took place outside the home, in the middle of nowhere. The 2024 version becomes a home invasion as the family fights back their attackers from within. Paddy also steals their money and has a bit of a villain monologue as he prepares to kill them. One by one, the villains are killed off. There's nothing particularly horrific about these deaths. They were done fine, but once the villains started dying, there wasn't much tension left because I could see where things were going. Paddy is saved for last after he makes a creepy and honestly not needed remark about making young Agnes his next wife and accomplice. And after all this, the parents are still too cowardly to finish Paddy off completely. So Ant comes in to complete his character arc by killing Paddy with a large stone as Paddy says, "That's my boy." Again, while I respect the filmmakers for trying something different with this film instead of a copy-paste remake of the fantastic and unforgettable original, what they actually accomplished was making just another thriller film. In fact, I would hesitate to call this film a horror. It's thrilling, but not as tense nor as horrific as the original. The original's ending is what makes the film a horror for me. It's just so unexpected, bleak, and hard-hitting. It really hammers home the lesson this couple failed to grasp. How they let themselves be walked all over for so long when they had little reason not to stand up for themselves and their daughter from the start. All the more reason why this piece of dialogue hits so damn hard.
Why are you doing this? Because you let me.
Speak No Evil 2024 does nothing original or fresh with this home invasion ending. It's very by the numbers as each villain is killed off one by one. The good guys win and bad guys lose. The original film killed and maimed children. A truly shocking choice that you do not see often in horrors, or any film really. This one saves them. It's a pretty safe ending, and a surprising one from the writer of Eden Lake. What this safe ending does is erase the hard-hitting and uncomfortable message of the original in two ways. 1. For the American couple, I hesitate to say they learned much. Louise does kill Mike, the couple's accomplice, to save her husband, and whacks Kira off the roof of the house. Then they just leave Paddy out in the cold after their daughter incapacitates him with veterinary ketamine. The mastermind and psychopath who was about to murder them all and threatened to wife their preteen daughter. They were ready to walk away for him to fight another day. Despite surviving this ordeal and saving the children, I don't see an inherent strong change within them. Maybe Louise, as she was more aggressive to the couple, verbally during the weekend and then very much physically during the finale. But Ben? I think he'd just sink into a ball and sob after this weekend, and then try to live life as safely as possible to move on from the ordeal. And 2, for the British couple, this is all a fun game. Paddy enjoys hunting his prey and playing with his food during the weekends. The actual goal of this ruse is to steal the victim's money and possessions for financial gain, choosing isolated, lonely victims whose disappearances wouldn't throw up alarm bells to close friends and family. Stealing the children is an odd choice, but whatever. I guess it just adds more to the game for the childless British couple. So this all adds up to mean it doesn't really make as much sense when they repeat the iconic lines from the original. Because for Paddy and Kira, it's about the money and the hunt, not the lesson. As I touched on in my original Speak No Evil review, I found the characters of Patrick and Karen interesting because they didn't seem to thrive off their work. After killing Bjorn and Louise, their expressions seem pensive and almost sad. Like the Danish couple had failed their long-winded test and they were disappointed in them. They are still very much serial killing villains, but it's not about the money or game. It's all the test and subsequent lesson. And the kidnapped children suffer the consequences of their parents' sins. This makes the couple all the more unique and horrifying because it's so psychopathic and strange. This also helps to cement the film's position as satire and social commentary. The original director of Speak No Evil 2022, Christian Tavdrup, spoke on this new ending, saying, "I don't know what it is about Americans, but they are brought up for a heroic tale, where the good must win over the bad, and this version of the film cultivates that." I completely agree. It's a safe and somewhat cowardly ending from the creators of this adaptation, and a disappointing, forgettable one as a result. Speak No Evil 2024 is not a bad film. For those that haven't seen or don't care for the original, it's probably a pretty good film. Critics and audience scores alike seem to echo that. I even enjoyed the setup of the first half, but was let down by its hollow and stereotypical ending. The backstories given for Paddy and Kira just feel like unnecessary filler now. They are not teaching lessons or testing people's boundaries after difficult lives of their own. They simply are serial killing burglars. It feels incredibly underwhelming compared with the original. And on its own, it just feels like another predictable good guys win against bad guys action ending. I think with a more memorable and daring ending, this could have been a fantastic double bill with the original, commenting on the differences between these 4 cultures. But in trying to make this ending their own, they went too far in the other direction and got lost.